it's funny because like with podcasts, man, Melissa's like, how is it that you talk to someone you barely even know for 3 hours? She's like, but I can't get you to engage me for 3 minutes. I'm like, I don't know, because I was a captive audience, I guess.
This is amazing, man. I'm loving this because I feel like we've just given. Hopefully, people that are listening are picking up on this. Like I'm such a strong advocate for mental health, and like personal development is kind of like a little hobby of mine. Call it a
Yeah.
hobby or a passion. But yeah, the sleep is like one of my favorite. I call it my favorite medicine. And working out, even if I just like walk around, there's a couple lakes that I like to walk around. I'll just take like a 1 mile leisurely walk. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
meditating when I do it.
Right.
And just being consciously aware of like look at the label of the shit that you eat. And if there's a whole bunch of shit words that you don't know what it is,
You can't
put
spell
put that
it.
back on the shelf and get like a nice chicken breast and some rice and some steamed vegetables.
Simple. Yeah, if you're
And
in the aisles in the grocery store, stop. Go back
yeah,
to the perimeter, right? Like
go to
that's
go to
so
the
well
perimeter.
done.
And by the way,
It's easier.
sometimes I know it's really hard to sometimes make a change, and I have a sweet tooth as well. Like I fucking love sweets, but if you can just do like a little bit, maybe like one less piece of cake per
Right.
week, you're
Right.
already on the right track.
I I have rules. Right. I have rules for myself and I do not break them. Right. Like they're steadfast rules. And it's funny because Melissa will be like, you and your rules. And I'm like, look who's talking. She's the exact same way. Right. If I do want to eat sweets, I only eat them at night at bedtime. And people are like, well, isn't that, won't that make you fat? I'm like, well, I'm not eating that much. Right. I get my carb coma, my sugar coma at bedtime. Right. Sugar raises serotonin that can be converted into melatonin that helps us sleep. So I have this rule, right? Like I won't do sugars. Dude, I don't eat bread or pasta. I don't eat processed carbohydrates. I eat very little rice, potatoes, or other healthy carbohydrates because I don't need them. Right. I eat what I need. I went through a little phase there for a few years where I was in the triathlons and ultra marathons. Well, in that case, I ate a lot of carbohydrates, but I was running. I would go for 8 hour runs. You know what I mean? I needed carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And even then, I resisted the urge to eat pizza. It was rice. It's when I discovered, quinoa, and I resisted it, dude. I'm not eating that hippie quinoa stuff. And then I discovered, like, oh wow, it's actually really good for you and a good carbohydrate. Uh, anyway, I have these rules, man, and I don't break these rules. My rules is what keeps me from, I don't know, even being that punk criminal I was as a young child, but it keeps my behaviors within this left and right limit, right? Like the racks on the bowling lane, I need those racks, right? Freaking to keep me out of the gutters. I need those rules. And they're steadfast, man. I don't break them. So when it comes to diet and the gym and my sleep and all that, like I said, I made a rule that my bedtime was 10 o'clock. No more computer, no more devices, no more nothing. Right? It's lights out. We're going to bed. And so when I made that rule and I started adhering to it, right? To me, that's the easier way to make a change. Right? Like, and this is for me, right? Again, not a therapist, don't claim to be. I share with folks me and mine. And so when I make a rule for myself, now it's like a rule regulation, right? I can't break this rule. It is easier for me to make that change. You know, I
Yeah.
am lucky. I am lucky. I always try to disclose this to people. I I didn't really grow up with a sweet tooth. And I also grew up with the idea, this thing that my mother would say, that you can't eat sweets before dinner. And that meant all day long. And because it would ruin your dinner. Well, as a young man who believed every word his mother said, I interpreted that sentence as my dinner food would be ruined, right? Not my appetite, my food would be ruined. As in,
Yeah.
I wouldn't get dinner because it would be rotten. So to this day, I don't eat sweets during the day, right? Which is funny, Melissa, who is arguably more healthy, more fit than I am. She helps keep me between those, rails. Um, if I, and that's why we're so synergistic, right? Like if she starts to slip a little bit, which she doesn't, then I'm there to be like, maybe we shouldn't eat that. Uh, but she's funny, man. Melissa will we'll go into a restaurant and she'll order cake as an appetizer. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? She's like, well, my mom let me eat whatever the hell I want because she was at work and I fix food. I eat what I want, right? But she'll eat two pieces of that, two bites of that cake, put it in a to-go box, and 9 times out of 10, that's what I'll eat as my sweet that night. So
Yeah.
it is synergistic. But my point is, right, she has her own rules about her diet and all that kind of stuff. And maybe she has more self-control than I do. Because if I ate a piece of cake at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm probably gonna eat the whole damn thing, not two bites, right? She can do that. That's not my style. My style is like, fuck it, I'll eat the whole cake. But those rules keep me, my behaviors and keeps those healthy things as my priorities, right?
Yeah.
As if I have rules against unhealthy things, right, I won't break them. So when I talk to folks about making changes in their life, I'm like, make rules. And if you need a consequence for breaking your rule, if I eat too much junk, that just means, right? So there's the health factor, right? Overall health, inflammation, all that you get from eating some junk food. And then there's the physical piece, right? I could gain fat, I could, and they're all intertwined. And so if I overdo it on junk food, I will forego junk food for longer, right? And then the next few days, I will make up for it in the gym on the physical side, right? Not the overall health side. They're two very different things, right? Like
Mm.
we used to joke that we were the fittest alcoholics on the planet, right? In the military.
Right.
We're not the healthiest, right? There was nothing healthy about our lifestyles. We were going too far with the physicality and with all the drinking, the lack of sleep. There was nothing healthy about us. We were fit, very physically fit. So anyway, to me, when I talk to folks about that, man, it's like, hey, make yourself rules, and if you need them, give yourself consequences for breaking those rules. Um, that works for me, you know.
Yep.
But
So
yeah, man, we were, kind of starting to talk about, getting down to Mexico. And I was telling you that uh after talking to Johnny and he said his headache went away, I was like, wait a minute, how do we sign up? And he said, okay, hey man, I'm gonna send you a link for this organization that will pay for it for you to go. They send special operations guys, founded by a Navy SEAL. Okay, cool. All right. Well, tell me, send it to me. So it's an organization called VETS, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, founded by Amber and Marcus Capone. Marcus was a dev group, SEAL Team 6 guy. Uh, he was in a bad place, bad spot, man. Suicidal, depressed, et cetera, et cetera. And Amber was on her last leg with him, right? They were at a point where things were falling apart so bad that she was losing hope, right? And somehow or another, I don't know exactly what she was looking at, reading at, but she discovered plant medicine. And the way I understand it, it was a handful of guys who initially linked up with Trevor Millar of MBO Life Sciences, who is the practitioner, the provider of the Ibogaine. And so Marcus and a handful of other guys, a couple of dudes that if I said their names, a lot of people listening would know. I just don't know if it's cool for me to say that they did it or not. I don't know their stances, but like I said, some pretty
sure.
famous folks in the military veteran type community, right? SEALs that if you say their name, the average American or many Americans who care about veterans and stuff would be like, I know that dude. I read his book. I saw that movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, those guys went down to Tijuana where Trevor had his place. He had originally been in Vancouver, and this is the thing that a lot of folks don't know. I didn't know. Ibogaine has like a 99% success rate for treating opiate addiction.
Mhm.
It resets the receptors that were, I always talk about, it's like the Guns N' Roses song, Mr. Brownstone. It says it's about heroin, and they say, I used to do a little, but then the little wouldn't do it. So the little got more and more. That's heroin, right? Until you get to the point in which you OD and die. That's heroin. So Trevor in Vancouver, British Columbia, was helping addicts with Ibogaine. And what they began to see, and if you go all the way back, little history on Ibogaine was made illegal along with all the other psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, all these things back in the 60s, right? Big Pharma, it's not a conspiracy. You can go back and look up the history. Big Pharma wanted to shut that shit down. There, up until that point, man, there had been so much research from the 1920s to the 1960s supporting LSD, supporting these. I mean, what is LSD? It's a synthetic, version of other plant medicines, um, showing all this promise for mental health, all this promise for addiction recovery and curing. And of course, the United States government stepped in and made it illegal. And not just illegal, scheduled it in the same schedule as heroin, methamphetamines, cocaine, all that stuff, right? Like it's all felonies. It's all jail time for possession and use of that stuff, right? Or distribution of that stuff. So anyway, these guys were doing it outlaw in places that it was quote unquote legal, or at least not criminal. So Trevor moves from Vancouver, and there's a really cool documentary they did in Vancouver. It's called Dosed, where they are working with this one female who is, a heroin addict. Great video to kind of give you that perspective on the opiate side of what Ibogaine can do for people.
Mhm.
Now, what happened was they discovered that, holy crap, right? Like, why do people use heroin? I mean, there's lots of reasons, but many of them have some type of trauma that they're trying to escape, right? Why do we, well, why do we use drugs? For recreational stuff. A lot of times, or self-medicating folks, they're trying to escape their reality,
Mhm.
right? So during using Ibogaine or administering Ibogaine, they saw that these opiate addicted folks, heroin addicted addicts, um, they were getting huge mental benefits. That was also addressing their PTSDs, their traumas. So they were not only getting off of heroin, they were getting better mentally. And so I guess it was theorized, and I don't know the whole process here, how military PTSD guys started giving it a try and reporting back that, holy crap, I'm not depressed, PTSD is gone, I'm not suicidal, whatever. Uh, so Amber stumbles onto this stuff, and basically, I don't know exactly how she motivated Marcus to go, but Marcus and, like I said, a handful of other SEALs, and an Air Force guy, and like an NFL player, all went down. This is the first group of the group of guys I know who have done it. They went down and did this, and they all reported miraculous recoveries. Like the
Amazing.
benefits were just knocked out of the park. And I think they were all very surprised, right? Because at this point, they were some of the first ones. And so they come back, and I don't really know the full timeline. We're talking 5 and 6 years ago. They come back during that time, and Amber and Marcus see the benefits. Their marriage comes back together. Marcus comes back from the dead, basically, and becomes a productive, loving, caring human being again. So they started Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, and they have grants. They raise money to send guys and gals to these different retreats, whether it's Ibogaine, psilocybin retreats, ayahuasca retreats, et cetera, et cetera. And so Johnny sent me the link. I applied, um, and got a phone call from a Miss Lori, who was the coordinator. And she gave me a quick little interview and said, okay, cool. We'll find you some dates. It was so simple, so easy. And it's very referral, since Johnny referred me, right? That vetted me
Yep.
for quite a bit anyway. But they check, make sure, are you a soft guy? Are you, were you injured? Where do you rank, in the order of merit to go on this trip? So luckily it was only a few months. I got a date. It was last October. Not this past October, last October, 2022. And you're down there for a week. Uh, you go in, you fly in on Sunday night to San Diego, and then you go down to Tijuana on Sunday or Monday morning. And it's a really nice place. I had never been to Tijuana before, but I had heard stories about Tijuana. And so in my head, what Tijuana was going to look like was not this. I had no idea there were beautiful gated communities on the Pacific Ocean, overlooking the cliffs and all that stuff. I didn't know. Tijuana to me sounded like like most people think Tijuana. Sin City. So the house is a beautiful home, beautiful house they use for the retreat, and they have medical personnel on that are always there. It is, dude. It is one of the most professional, if not the most professional civilian outfit I've ever witnessed. They they have the medical personnel. They've got doctors, nurse practitioners, EMTs. They've got two chefs that prepare the meals. Some of the best food I've ever had. Just amazing, clean, just wonderful. I mean, it, the best way to describe it is you show up in Tijuana and you're immediately surrounded by people who truly care and love you. It was amazing. I had never felt. I don't know that it felt that kind of safety and security since before my mother died.
Wow.
I mean, they were amazing. Trevor Millar is the most compassionate, non-judgmental, understanding human being I think I've ever met. I can't. And the only other people that get close to him were a couple of the folks on his staff.
Wow.
I mean, it was just amazing.
Wow.
And so day one, while you're there, they take you to a traditional Mexican sweat lodge, Native Mexican American sweat lodge. And it's like a little igloo, and it's
Yeah.
hot as balls, right?
Yeah.
Whatever sauna you've ever been in, this thing makes it look like it's air conditioned. And so the shaman, the priestess lady, she is speaking in her native tongue and some Spanish and stuff. And Trevor translates. It was kind of cool. And you're doing like 15 minutes in. I think you do 4 rotations. And if you want to get out, you can. And it was pretty amazing. You're like in this crazy sauna sweat lodge. And then, like, because it was October, it was, chilly outside. I would walk outside and lay down on the concrete. And it felt amazing. Even right off the bat. It had nothing to do with the psychedelic trip. Like right off the bat, it's like, okay. And I get it. Sweat out toxins, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they do that to help push any supplements, drugs that folks take. And not only is it just good for you, right? But it does that sweating helps push out anything that might contradict with the plant medicines, right?
Yeah.
So before you go, you have to have an EKG. You have to have basically a small physical, right? There's things you have to check off. You can't take any SSRIs or um, really anything that produces serotonin in your body, because the plant-based medicines increase serotonin and dopamine and all these neurotransmitters at such high levels that serotonin saturation syndrome is a thing, right?
Yeah.
So the they make sure, right, that you're have none of that. Then when you get there, you're given a urinalysis and blood tests to make sure you're not on any of those drugs. Very professional, man.
Yeah. That's super professional.
Yeah.
That's
I thought
really
it was
looking
amazing.
out. That's really looking out for people's safety and well-being.
Yeah. Well, so a friend of mine who went, she had been taking like a pre-workout that had kratom in it, kratom, however you say that, and but
Okay.
didn't know it. It wasn't on the list of ingredients, right? A lot of supplement companies put things in their supplements that they may not describe or dose them at certain. They don't disclose it because you are perceived to get a better, pre-workout or whatever. and it's not caffeine, it's kratom.
Wow.
That's illegal.
Holy
So
shit.
here's, yeah, and this young lady, no drugs, no SSRIs, no nothing, right? No weed, no nothing. She gets down there and tests hot for kratom. And she's like, I don't even know what that is. She had never heard of it before. Like that's, Um, so anyway, after the sweat lodge and a couple of days of freaking super hydration and a couple of IVs, she washed it out of her system and she was able to proceed with the plant medicine with Ibogaine. And so anyway, super professional, bro. Um,
Yeah.
it just, man, if they said breakfast is at 9 a.m., there's breakfast on the table at 9 a.m. I was so impressed, right? Like they were just, anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
that's amazing.
I
That's a really
I
sounds like
think,
a really good experience.
I
So you
think,
do your sweat lodge, you got your
yeah,
first purge of the sweat,
right.
and then what comes
Yeah.
next?
Yeah. And honestly, man, the reason why I bring up the professionalism is I think guys need to know that. Um, so if they're contemplating and they're like, I don't know, this might just be some weird hippies freaking, no, man, these are medical professionals, man. They treat themselves as such.
Yeah,
Um, Trevor, I don't rate Trevor as like, he's not the tree hugging hippie type. He's actually like, but he's not, obviously not like a Navy SEAL. You know what I mean? He's a medical professional.
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, man. After the sweat lodge, they do like some breathing techniques. You go back to the house. Bedrooms are all downstairs. Upstairs is one big open room, and that's where you embark on your journey and all that kind of stuff. So upstairs, we did like a yoga and breathing class. They're like, because if you have any type of anxiety or panic that happens during your journey, because I don't know, you're seeing something, you're being shown something that makes you anxious or whatever. These breathing techniques can help calm you down. So that was very cool. I enjoyed both of those sessions. I'm not very good at yoga, but it was the first yoga class that I ever felt like, I don't know, every yoga class I ever felt like I had to like really try, like I got to really try to get in this crazy contorted position. Well, I'm not the most flexible. I'm not a yogi. This yoga practitioner, man, she just made me feel like, you know what, hey, man, if you just want to lay on the mat and shut your eyes, do that. It was really
Beautiful.
cool.
Yeah.
Everything about it was just cool.
Like do what's right for you.
Right. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
don't want to do this stretch, don't do it. Hmm. You
Yeah.
know, I didn't feel compelled to even try, you know? So anyway, um, that's what Monday and then Tuesday. Tuesday evening is when you start setting up to take your dose of Ibogaine. And there's a traditional ceremony. So Ibogaine grows in Gabon, Africa, naturally. And the Weedy tribe and another tribe have used it for thousands of years for medicine and um, you know, rituals, et cetera, et cetera. And so you do like this the ceremony, they call it, the fire ceremony, where basically you write down on a piece of paper things you want to be get rid of, right? Something like that. So you throw that in the fire. And like I said, a traditional ceremony goes along with it. And then I think it's about 9 o'clock. You get your first dose, and it's based off of body weight. So, like in my case, in that Navy SEAL that I mentioned, both we were the two bigger guys there, so we're both getting 4 pills compared to some of the others are getting 3 pills. Whatever, it's that kind of professional, man. They weigh it out, and it's per pound of body weight. And so, yeah, about 9 o'clock you take your first dose, and I think about 10 o'clock you take your second dose, and probably by 10:30 things started moving around a little bit. And we're upstairs, and they got the traditional booty music playing in the background, and we got our shakers, and they have you sit in front of a mirror to begin with, right? You're just sitting there, you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and it's kind of like this reflective to let you know that everything you're about to experience is you, right? It's what's happening inside of you, right? It's not an external thing. Everything that's going to come out into this in this journey is what's inside of you. And so, just as a reminder, right, which can be for some guys some scary shit, right? Things they've been holding down in there. But You're given a mask because it's a eyes open or eyes closed hallucinogen, right? So whether your eyes are open or closed, you can have visions. They are much more specific, much more detailed, much more grand. I don't even have the right words, honestly, to describe what you see on Ibogaine. I mean, it is amazing. But you're given a like a sleepy mask, like cover your eyes. And it's funny, like I remember I was sitting there and I'm like looking at my mask, and I'm like, and I look over, and that Navy SEAL's sitting next to me on his little pad, and he's like tapping his mask, like as if like to see if it's see through.
Yeah.
It's not see through. You're seeing visions in more detail than what you're seeing, than what me and you are looking at right now, right? Everything in the room in front of you, this phone, it's 10 times the pixels, 10 times, if not 100 times more detailed, crisp. And I mean, the vision happens from your edge of your peripheral to the other edge of your peripheral. I mean, it is amazing. The colors are different, more vibrant than what we have here. Like when I say I saw orange, it's not like it's like not really the orange on the end of this little Nerf thingy, right? Or cousin's little Nerf gun projectile. It's like it's hard to describe, man. For me, the best way I can describe it for people is like when I look at this is light reflecting off that. That's what I see. The visions that you see on Ibogaine, as if the thing you see is being created from its own light.
Wow.
I don't know how else to describe it, bro. And I always tell people, man, I'm like, all right, I'm going to tell you about this journey, and it's going to sound crazy. And they're like, oh, no, no. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's going to sound crazy because it's crazy, right? Like, I'm aware it's the stuff you see there is amazing. And it's nothing you'll ever see, at least that I know of, in in this consciousness, in our regular consciousness. So, yeah, man, the moving forward a little bit into that, freaking, I I ask him and that SEAL, I'm like, hey man, are you starting to see? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm seeing sparkles and static. I'm like, yeah, okay. Um, I was getting some of the same. Sorry, brother. I'm trying to plug my phone in here.
Cool.
So get it set back up where it won't fall over on me.
Cool.
Um, hmm. All right. So yeah. The first thing I saw when I lay back and the visions were like, whoop. I mean, I went from like a little bit of things moving a little bit of staticky looking thing to boom, this vision. And I'm laying there in the jungle, some jungle. I've actually never been to a jungle. Closest thing I've ever been to a rainforest is in Washington State, right? I've worked in the desert my whole fucking life, right? Never done a jungle warfare iteration in my life. Never been in a jungle. And I'm in this jungle and I'm laying there. My pad has turned into like a grass mattress, right? And I can feel the blades of grass touching me, as real as if I went out and laid in my front yard right now. Crazy, right? I was like, oh. And it's a little overwhelming at first, but like not scary. Like, holy crap, this is wild, at least for me. Some
Yeah.
some folks do get a little apprehensive.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm surrounded by these people. And they are African, right? They are Black people, and they're in kind of some tribal garb, part Western clothes, part tribal garb. And I'm kind of confused, I'm like, huh. Next to my pad is a pail because you can throw up on the medicine, purge, and my water bottle and my hat. Those items changed into a tea kettle that belonged to the shaman priest, um, a small cup of like a bowl of water. My water bottle turned into a bowl of water, and I was just like, "What in the world?" And so, all of these people, their faces seem to be slightly distorted. Right? I couldn't quite put two and two together at the time. I was like, "Wow," it was just distinct. And then the priest, this guy who was clearly the command authority amongst these people that were surrounding me, and they were happy. The music was playing, they were dancing. It was really cool. I was like, okay, right on. I'm in some kind of weird jungle party. And the priestess or the priest, the shaman, he had a white face, and it appeared to kind of be face paint, but not exactly. And I'll explain that later. Well, one of the women was dancing. She had a child, a baby, right? And she came up to me and kind of looked over, and I sat up, and I kind of reached, like, I thought she was going to hand me her baby, and she like pulled it back and disappeared into the crowd. I have no idea what the significance of that was, um, but it was a significant thing that I remember clearly from my journey. And I was like, huh, well, that was weird. Okay, she didn't want me to hold her baby, and then it changed. I left them, and it kind of turned into this wall, right? Like almost like a stone wall with a sculpture in it, of a face, and it just was there for a second, and boom, it switched to I was basically in space, what appeared to be space, nothingness. Um, and as I kind of like looked around, I saw the center, right? The center of the universe, heaven, and it was right there, but like a million miles away. And I was like, just looking at it, I was amazed. The colors were insane. It was just a little like, wow. I mean, the most wow moment I ever had in my life. And that is when my guide appeared. And like I said, he scared the shit out of me at first. I thought he was a demon. He was very black, right? Now I'm in space, it's dark, but this guy, he's so black. He's very physically fit looking, not huge jack, but just very athletic build. I couldn't tell how big he was because, like I said, I'm in space. I got no reference, right? I don't know if he was 6 foot tall or 600 feet tall, and he didn't speak to me. He only gestured, and when he moved, it wasn't like this kind of movement. It was like he wasn't facing me, then he was facing me. I never saw him move. He just went from one position to the next. It was strange, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and once I got close to him, I felt the safety and security that, like, oh no, this isn't a bad being. This is a good being. He's here to help.
Mhm.
And he was kind of my guide. He would take me from place to place, like into transitional periods from one point in the journey to the next. Well, and so that continued, and everything was great. Another thing that folks, need to know about Ibogaine is that it basically makes it where you can't hardly move. Have you ever seen a Parkinson's patient, the way they kind of shake?
Yeah.
My dad had Parkinson's disease, and his left side would just kind of shake, and not very good control. It's like that, but your whole body. And I think it's
Oh,
just
okay.
probably a safety mechanism of Ibogaine, so you don't get up and go, run off in the jungle,
Yeah.
or into traffic. you know,
Yeah.
it's to keep you sitting there, and at least that's my interpretation. Um, and so, like, even to get up to go to the bathroom or something, man, the staff is there to help.
Yeah.
Well,
So you're
so for
like you're
me,
like laying there or you're sitting slash laying like on a mat?
mhm,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
yeah,
Got
and
it.
you can sit up if you need to go to the bathroom. Just raise your hand. There's always someone there. They do go to down to after everybody starts. They said, and this is kind of part of my journey, man. They said, after you all settle down and through the initial phase of the really intense visions and stuff, it settles down. You stay in the journey, but the visions subside a little bit. They're not as intense. And he's like, once we see that everyone's settled down, because apparently you move and you sit up and you reach for imaginary things, they know when everybody's kind of settled down. So they go to just one person there throughout the night.
One like facilitator or one person to keep
Right.
an eye on everyone,
That's right.
help you if
Yeah,
you need it, take you to the bathroom, help.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So my vision stopped, and I literally felt like I could, like I was like I could just get up. I'm like, this is supposed to last for 12, 16, 18 hours. Why am I a few hours into it and nothing? Well, I threw up. I purged. And I thought that it had been just a few minutes after I took my second dose of medicine. So in my mind, I started thinking, well, I must have thrown up my medicine. Well, you have no real understanding of time or space, right? Um, no watches. I don't know what time it is. Had I put two and two together, I would have known it's at least 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours later because there's only one person there, right? The whole staff had gone. So I should have put two and two together, but I'm on Ibogaine, dude. Like I'm not, calculating the way I would any other time, right? And so the one person that is there is a young lady. She was one of the newer members of the staff, and her English was not as good as some of the other folks that worked there or whatever. And I was trying to explain it to her, like, I think I threw up my medicine. She's like, "Yeah, you threw up." I'm like, "Not what I'm saying. I think I threw up my dose, and therefore I'm not getting the full ride. I need you to call Trevor." And she's like, "Okay, I'll go downstairs and call Trevor." And she comes back, and she's like, basically, the communication wasn't there. So I fell asleep. What I thought was falling asleep. Well, check it out. You can't sleep on Ibogaine, right? Because of all the neurotransmitters, the dopamine, all that stuff that's being released. You're not going to sleep. You're not fully conscious, but you're not sleeping. Well, I woke up and thought I had been asleep. Well, that young lady is gone, and now a gentleman is there. And I'm like, "Hey, bro, did she tell you?" And like, as a military guy, security is supposed to hand off information to the next security person, and she had not told them. Well, it wasn't that she didn't understand what I was saying. I didn't understand what she was saying. So miscommunication. And so I tell him, I'm like, "Hey, I think I threw up my medicine. I'm not having a journey anymore. It finished way too soon. I didn't get what I came for. Uh, I need to talk to Trevor." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." You know, and it must be sometime around 3, 4 in the morning at this point, right? And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I wake up again. I go to sleep. What I think is asleep. Come to find out, man, my perception of reality and what really happened was very different. It had been 2 hours when I started purging since we had taken our dosages, so I did not throw up my medicine. Right? They knew that. Trevor knew it when I go to explain it to him in the morning. Right? And that's why I said earlier, understanding, compassionate and understanding. Trevor Millar. Well, that morning, sun's coming up. I know the sun's coming up. I can see it through the blinds or the curtains or whatever. And so I know at least it's sometime around 7 in the morning. And they give you another IV to help reuptake the medicine so you can go to your bedroom and have what's called a gray day. They call it the gray day. It's kind of like a hangover, but not nasty hangover like pardon me, from alcohol. You don't have the headache or whatever. You're just tired. You're
Yeah.
exhausted,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, "No, I don't. I want to talk to Trevor. I think I need a booster. I didn't take all my medicine, something, I threw up my medicine." And luckily, the nurse practitioner, she's like, "Okay, okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to give you this cocktail to pull it off in case when Trevor does get here and he's on his way. Um, I want to make sure that if he's going to give you something, to put you back in, then well, I don't want to give you this." Okay, cool, awesome, finally, right? She understood what I was saying. I felt great. Trevor comes in, man, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" I mean, just dude, I don't know how to explain the guy. Fucking just cool, chill guy, understanding.
Yeah.
So he's sitting Indian style, and I kind of like sitting there. And man, you're hooked up to an EKG heart rate monitor the whole time, right? Like I said,
Oh, wow.
professionals. Yeah. So if you got to get up the potty or go use the restroom, right, they got to disconnect you. They push you back in.
So
Right.
you're super safe physically and you're totally looked after.
Like I said, man, never once felt unsafe
Yeah.
at all. And I was in Mexico, right? And yeah, no, I just felt 100% taken care of. And so Trevor's like, "Okay, okay." He's like, "Well, check it out, man. It's way too late for just a booster." Because what happens is, let's say, like I know Johnny had to get a booster. He had his 4 pills, and then 2 hours later, he's still not really getting much. So they'll give you a booster, a little bit more to really push over the other side. Well, he's like, "A little late for that." He's like, "So the other option is to give you another dose." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it again then." And he's like, "Well, I just got to tell you, it's going to make for one hell of a long day, bro." And I was like, "I'm here till Friday. Like,
Nice.
I'm still here. I came here for something and I want it, right? Like, put me back in the matrix, plug me back in." And So he's like, okay. So he's like, I'll prepare it. Hang tight. So everybody else goes downstairs to their bedrooms to go, sleep it off, have their great day. And I took another dose. And it was not long before the visions came back. And here's the thing, man. Trevor knew damn well I took my medicine. Trevor knew that I had not thrown it up. Um, he just knew that in my explanation that I had not received the journey I needed and was willing to, take that next step and put me back in and give me that other dose. And like I said, man, it did not take long. I was right back in it. I was throwing up again. It didn't take but a second for me to purge that and have anything left to purge. Laid back down, and dude, it was like boom. My guide was in my face.
Oh, he came
Like
back.
basically, like, what are you doing here? Right? Like you're not supposed to be here, right? Like you checked out. And so this is the part that I didn't tell Trevor. I told him later. When I was talking to Johnny about his journey, Johnny told me that he was able to sit down and talk to his dead mother. His mother was not an awesome mother. Like I said, bad story. His bad story. I don't tell it. But he was able to talk to his mother, and he said she touched my hand, dude, and it was no shit, no different if I touched your hand right here, right now. So while I went to do Ibogaine for my TBI, I couldn't help it, but that seed was planted. So sometime during my journey, I decided I wanted to see my mother.
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, that's not, I didn't tell Trevor, like, hey, man, I didn't see my mom, right? I want back in. Because I think in my mind, he'd have been like, it's not really what it's about, bro. The medicine shows you what it shows you, but I want it
Yeah.
back in. And so when my guide basically said, to me without saying anything, what are you doing here? I was like, take me to her. Like I was somehow in control now. Like I'm in charge. I was like, I know you know where she is. Take me to her. And he turned his back on me and started to move away. Right. He was like, boom, boom. I told you, he didn't walk. He didn't I never saw him move. He just went from one place to the next. And I basically wanted to bow up, like, hey, get back here. And a voice, medicine, people can call it whatever you want. God said to me, that's not what we're doing this time. I didn't question it. It was authority. The voice was authority, the authority, right? There was no question in my mind. I never second guessed it. I said, okay, just like that. Okay. And it was an amazing thing, dude. I mean, amazing. And within seconds, my where my brain hurts from my TBI, basically from right above my right eye all the way around to the left side of back side of my head, warmed up. And it was as if I was holding my brain in my hand. I could see it in the darkness, right? And it was warm. And what felt like 30 seconds, it migrated down into my neck and shoulder. And like I could see the nerves as if they were right in front of me in my vision. And about 30 seconds of that, it moved to my broken vertebrae and all the damage and scar tissue and nastiness around it. It's like it was right there in front of me in high definition. And then to my broken femur, I could feel the titanium rod that is in my leg that I've never seen before. I could feel it like I was touching it right now. I broke one of the screws, the lower screw in that rod. And I remember I touched the sharp edge of it. And it was like I was holding it. And then, like I said, about 30 seconds, and then it moved to my ankle. Then I got a little busted ankle, and then to where I broke my foot. Every major injury, it addressed it, right? Like it showed it to me. And I was like, okay. And then Trevor was like, hey, man, what's up? Take my mask off. I'm like, hey, what's up? Man, it felt like it'd been 5 minutes since he gave me that dose. And he goes, I just, wanted to check on you. They said you've been, moving around quite a bit, had quite the active day. And I'm like, active day? What are you talking about? What time is it? And he looks at his phone and he's like, it's 4:33 in the afternoon. It had been over 8 hours since I took that dose, and it had happened like that.
Oh my god. So 8
Like
hours
time machine, 8 hours,
felt like
all those
5
different
minutes.
feelings that I saw that felt like 30 seconds had been over 8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what? Like, whoa. And he's like, hey, man, I'm just checking on you. You're not done. Um, we're gonna let you, stay up here for a couple more hours and, and let it subside and whatever. So they have like a Reiki practitioner. She
Yeah.
comes in and does Reiki on you. And I was kind of out of it for that, but I remember like it was a very soothing experience. Like, whew, it was very cool. So anyway, they give me my IV. I go downstairs, man, and I told you myself and that SEAL, not a coincidence that he was there, right? Not a coincidence that he and I are the only ones sharing a bedroom, and our two beds, like when you go into this bedroom, it's like a T intersection. So one bed's over here, and one bed's over here, and like so we're if we were both sitting up in our beds, we'd be facing each other.
Mhm.
And so I go down there, and he's already had his gray day. He slept a lot of the day. But unbeknownst to me, apparently throughout the day, he kept getting up and wanting to check on me. And they were like, we got him, man. He's okay. Because he did not have a pleasurable experience on Ibogaine. He
Oh.
had a rough ride. So when they told him I took another dose, he was like, in his mind, I was experiencing what he had experienced, where I did not have a rough ride. I had a very enlightening ride, but not traumatic. I didn't, man, I can say with a clear conscience, man, I've never pulled the trigger on anybody that wasn't a combatant, right? I've never killed an innocent person, you know? And we can argue all day long who's right, wrong, indifferent, right? Is it, was that's regardless. I have only engaged people who were engaging me, right? And I have no problems with that in my head. Politics aside, they were fighting for their side. I was fighting for our side. We got together. We fought. Right. That's how I look at combat.
Mhm.
I will not allow the political side to corrupt. Right. The the combat I experienced. Right. It was in many ways an amazing experience. Right. And it basically just boils down to people who believed in this and people who believed in that got together and fought. That is probably why I don't suffer from PTSD. But I can say with a clear conscience, bro, I've never pulled the trigger on anyone except for a combatant, someone who truly wanted to hurt me and mine.
Yeah.
So I don't suffer from any of that kind of stuff. Apparently, he had some things that he had to sort through. Well, anyway, his perception was I'm going through it for a second time, right? So he's worried about me. How sweet, right?
Yeah. That's
How
beautiful.
sweet. I am describing exactly amazing. Here he was, 10 years younger than me, looks at me as a mentor, right? But he's worried about me and checking on me. So when I come downstairs, man, he was like, I, I sat down on the bed and I've still got my IV attached. So I've got the little roller thing or whatever. I'm just sitting there and like, like, wow, I am overwhelmed. I've seen so much crazy shit in the last 24 hours or so. I was like, whoa. And he looks at me and he goes, bro. And he's a big boy, man. He's like 6'3" or 4", 250. It's just a big old hoss of a fella. And he goes, bro, you you what exactly he say? He goes, um, you look like spilled fuck. And I looked at him, I was like, I've never heard that phrase before, but yeah, I feel like shit, bro. That's all I had. I was like, I had never heard the term spilled fuck. I was like,
This
okay,
it's a first for me too.
right. Maybe it's a Navy SEAL thing. I don't know. And so he says that shit. I'm like, whatever, dude. I don't feel good. And I did say, I said, man, I'm not hungry, but I feel like I need to eat. I mean, it had been 36, 40 hours since I had a meal, because you eat breakfast the day of and you don't eat again because you're going to purge. Or you may very well purge. Most people do.
Yeah.
So you kind of go into it kind of fasted.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, man, I wasn't hungry either, but I felt so much better. I'll go get you a plate of food." So they had saved me some food from dinner. And he goes upstairs and he's starting to prepare it. And the young lady, who was the first young lady from the night before, was like, "Get out of here. I'll do it." And he wouldn't, right? Like he wanted, and like so he stood there while she fixed the food, and then he brought it to me, right?
So
He
sweet.
brought it to me, like exactly. It was just I kindness,
Yeah.
right? From someone who is capable of serious violence, right? It was just pure kindness, right? So I eat my food, I chill out. He goes to bed. I toss and turn because my gray day is all night long now, right? So I toss and turn. And the sun comes up that morning, and I get up, and I'm like, all right, I need to take a shower. And so I walked in there, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, oh, that's what spilled fuck looks like. My hair was about as long as it is now. I hadn't had a haircut in like 6 months. And dude, my hair was like matted to my head on one side, almost dreadlocks on another, sticking up. I mean, I just looked crazy. And I have this thing called parathesis. It's a just a weird genetic defect or genetic thing. I don't know if it's a defect, where I don't feel my skin like you feel your skin, or the average person feels their skin. My dad had it. He gave it to me. I feel pain plenty. But when it comes to just my outer layer of skin, I don't have much feeling in it. So I've gone my whole life, like, I don't know what being ticklish feels like, right? It's just not a sensation I know. I don't get goosebumps very often, that sort of thing, right? Um, like, you know how people like to trace, right? Write letters and things on your back or whatever. I don't feel that shit.
Wow.
So anyway, dude, I stepped into the shower and was like, what the?
Oh,
Could
wow.
feel it. I could feel my skin for the first time in my life, man. At that point, I'm what, 46 years old. And dude, it was as if I could feel every drop of water coming out of that freaking spigot. I was like, out of that shower head. I was like, what the? I mean, I'm like looking around like for hidden cameras. I'm like, this is weird. It was so strange and amazing. It was the most amazing shower I'd ever taken in my life. I never felt anything like it. So I was like, wow, okay. So man, I go into back in the bedroom. I'm a kind of a jeans type of guy, right? As opposed to like khakis or I don't know, hiking pants. I like wearing jeans. So I pull my jeans on, right? Like if I want to get into some comfortable clothes, it's gonna be, jeans. So I pull my jeans on and I reach to get a t-shirt and I'm like, it feels gross. Like, what's wrong with this shirt? Right? Like it felt dirty. It wasn't. It's clean. It's my clean clothes right out of my suitcase. And I'm like, what the? So COVID had taken my smell and taste. And so I
Yeah.
went to smell the shirt. I assumed it would smell like everything else smells. So like COVID made everything smell the same to me, right? It didn't matter if it was cotton candy or dog poop. It smelled the same. So when I smelled the shirt, I smelled the detergent. And I was like, what the? I pulled my deodorant out and smelled it, and it smelled like deodorant. I was like, holy shit. Like, wow. So I got my smell back
It
and
like
taste back from
reactivated
COVID.
all of your senses.
Dude, it was insane. It's resetting receptors that have been damaged, right? And that's what it does. The theory is that Ibogaine, to the greater extent of any of the plant medicines, turns on your body's healing components, right? Like if you cut yourself, you don't have to tell your skin to heal, right? If you get a cold, your body's immune system, you don't have to tell it or think it into making you better.
Right.
So the theory is that Ibogaine turns our own immune system and healing mechanisms on.
Wow. Sure
So
sounds
I
like it.
was just, dude, I'm the only person up, right? And the whole house is quiet. And I am experiencing some amazing like I want to go yell on the rooftop, right? So I go upstairs and I kind of bebop around. The two chefs are there. And they're like, hey, what's up, man? We didn't expect you up this early. Breakfast isn't until like 10. And it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I was like, oh no, it's cool, man. It's cool. I'm just gonna go outside. So I went outside. Like I said, your Catalina Island is right there. You're overlooking the Pacific, man. It's just beautiful. And I just sat there in the grass. And there was a mist, a cloud mist, and I could feel it on my skin. And I was like, wow, wow. I'm just overwhelmed, dude. Just happy, happy. Like, I don't know, man. I couldn't imagine what the smile on my face looked like at that
Wow.
point. So I walked back in, and the same female therapist that I told you was just amazing. She had just gotten in there, gotten to work that day, and she looks at me like, "What are you doing up?" Well, remember I told you on Tuesday night, when you first start taking it, and everybody purges and throws up and stuff. The staff, right, the cleaning crew, the chefs, none of them are there. It's just the medical side, the practitioners. So they don't hear you throw up and stuff. Well, when I took my second dose the next morning, on Wednesday morning, they got to hear me purge, and it was dry heaving. So apparently it was pretty horrible.
Oh,
Well, they hear this stuff. So the next day when they see me up moving around, they're like, holy crap, he's alive, you know, uh, and moving around, and so the female therapist, and her name is Salome, just an amazing creature, man. What an awesome vibe. She's Persian descent, Iranian Persian descent, but Canadian. Just a I don't know, man. Hard to describe her. Freaking just an amazing person, man. Really down to earth, but like another super understanding. Like just the look on their face when they're talking to you. Her, another young lady, she's a practitioner, she's a medical personnel, Ruby, and just this no judgment, just no judgment. They
amazing.
literally are just there to help you, and they
Yeah.
love you, right? And so anyway, um, telling me, I was like, wow, okay. So anyway, she's like, the chef's like, hey man, I'll make you a smoothie, right? To put it in perspective, right? So I have never been a fruit person, right? Even as a child, if you offered me steamed broccoli or strawberries, I'm taking the broccoli, right? I was a weird kid, so I still would rather eat vegetables than fruit. Um, so they make me the smoothie, and it's like strawberry, raspberry, who knows? It's pink, and I'm like, I'm literally talking to the dude who made it. And I'm like, this is amazing. Have you tried it? You know, I have my taste back, dude. And this is the best fucking smoothie. Excuse my language, right? You can tell them this is an exciting thing, right?
Yeah.
I got my taste back. And this smoothie was the most amazing thing I had eaten in a couple of years. And I'm like, they're just laughing. They're so happy for me. I'm like, I got my taste back. This is amazing. Well, I'm not the first person that they've seen get their taste back from COVID. So
Wow.
they've seen it before, but they're just enjoying watching me experience it, if that
Beautiful.
makes sense. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So yeah, man. Everybody gets up, we have breakfast and little powwow. Hey, anybody want to talk? We want to welcome Tony back to Earth. And they had put off their little talk the night before because, to wait for me. Initial reaction, initial process, initial thoughts on everyone's experience. And like I said, I'm still all blissful as hell. I'm just like, woo, freaking, you guys tried this smoothie? you know, you guys should get a smoothie. But so we're having this chat, man, and this is where it was kind of cool. They, hey, what do you think? This and that. The who wants to start type of thing, and everybody's just kind of quiet. I think everybody was still just trying to understand their experience, process it, whatever you want to call it. Well, um, the female Coast Guard um, lady, she had been out of Coast Guard. She's mid to late 60s. She teaches surfing in San Diego. Cool grandma, dude. Redhead, just feisty, right? Probably a buck 30 at like 5'2", just small, beautiful, beautiful grandma, right? Just this spirit. And she runs a nonprofit, whereas like if you're a veteran and you go to her beach, she'll put you in a wetsuit and teach you to surf, right? I mean, she's like a big wave surfer at 60 some fucking years old as a grandma, dude. I'm like, dude,
Cool.
whoever your grandkids are, man, they're lucky.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so very cool, right? So she kicks it off, man. And you want to talk about some crazy, profound shit. So throughout our journey and our talks, she had told us that, you know, her trauma was her commander 30 some years ago raped her for over a year, many times.
Holy fucking shit.
Right. 30 some years prior, 33 years prior, I think. So we're looking at 34 years now. And so we're all like, man, whenever I mean, we're three Navy or two Navy SEALs and an SF guy, right? But when she spoke, man, we shut the fuck up and listened, right? Like she was that type of, you know, matriarch, whatever it is, you know, that type of spirit, man, just amazing. And so anyway, she goes, yeah, he's gone. We're all like, what does that mean? She goes, for the last 33 years of my life, every time I close my eyes, I can feel him. I can see him. I can smell him. She goes, and he's gone. He's
Wow.
gone. And dude, it was 15 seconds of silence and then hugs from everyone. It was just amazing. Hugs, tears, smiles, laughter, right? All because, wow, man, her attacker, the person who violated everything and anything about her safety and security, right? The person who had ruined her life, you know, had ruined parts of her life, certainly, right? Not her whole life, because she overcame best she could.
Yep.
Um, right? That he had been tagging along with her, and now she's gone, or he's gone. And
Amazing.
the medicine did that shit. I talked to her last week, and she's doing great. A year later,
Oh,
he's
wow.
still gone. Yeah, I still talk to her. She's fucking amazing.
That's awesome.
Um, and I have never surfed, right? I grew up on the Sound side, on the water here in North Carolina. Not that there's any surf even on the beaches of North Carolina. And I am going to go to San Diego and have her teach me to fucking surf.
All right.
You know what I mean? At some
Fuck
point,
yeah.
I was on my thing to go do. Um, just an amazing person. So we continued around the circle or whatever, talking this and this, and you know, talking about what we had. The one SEAL, man, he was struggling with some addiction and some alcoholism, but he had new children. That's why he was there to get right for them. He didn't have much to say. The other fellow who I had known from the gym or whatever, he talked about his a little bit. I talked about mine. Like I said, those two boys had a little bit rougher ride than I did. You know, our grandma, she was dealing with other things, whereas I was kind of like, man, my trip was pretty awesome. I'm still figuring it out, but wow, I didn't experience bad stuff. You know,
Yeah.
no anxieties, no flashbacks, nothing bad, right? Um, and then they asked the question, would you consider doing it again? No, no, and no. All three of them were like, nah, I'm good. Nope, don't ever want to see that shit again. I don't need to go back to that place. And I'm over here like, I'd do it again right now. Right? Like,
Amazing.
right? I would take another dose right now. And of course, even the practitioners now are looking at me like, what is wrong with you? But that voice told me, not this time. That's not what we're working on this time. In other
Oh,
words, my brain interpreted it as next time,
yeah.
as in there's more, right? There's more it needs to show me. There's more I need to know about whatever else
Yeah.
is in it.
Yeah. It seems like
So
it was giving you the almost like almost a big time physical healing.
yeah, like, hey
And
man, there's other things, right? We'll get to that other stuff another time. And so anyway, brother, freaking you know, I am planning on going back. I just haven't been able to figure it out exactly when. A couple of my friends have gone twice, and the second time was even better for them as far as healing and stuff goes, both mentally and physically. In other words, because they knew what to expect, they were
yeah.
able to tap into it a little bit better and open up to it,
Yeah.
surrender to it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to my next time. Now, like I said, their protocol is Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT.
Okay.
And for listeners, 5-MeO DMT is the venom from the Sonoran toad. So you'll hear it called 5, you'll hear it called toad, you'll hear it called lots of things, but it's 5-MeO DMT.
Okay.
And so 5-MeO DMT is a much shorter thing, and the crew down there with Ambio, they described it as Ibogaine's the sandpaper, and 5-MeO DMT is the polish, and that's why they've discovered it works so well together. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it was just such a beautiful day that afternoon that, like I said, there was a mist. Like, I'm from the East Coast, man. We don't have fog in the middle of the afternoon. This fog bank rolled in over the Pacific, couldn't see the ocean. You're in the clouds. And I've been in the clouds before, but never while sitting on the ground. Uh, and it was just amazing. I could feel it on my skin. It was beautiful. And we all said, "Hey, is there any way we can do this this part of the journey outside?" And they're like, "Absolutely." So we built like or we made like a blanket mattress and some pillows and went out there. The grass was just soft and nice. It was just perfect. Like, you could just sleep. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't even need the blankets, right? The grass was so manicured and just like soft. It was kind of like maybe like a golf course. I don't know. I don't play golf, so just super soft. You could lay down in it and you want to take a nap, like grounded with the earth type of stuff. Well, anyway, 5-MeO, like I said, it's a venom, right? And it's potentially toxic or even deadly. And it's like they're describing like, okay, we're gonna put it in a pipe, we're gonna heat it up, aerosol it, you're gonna inhale it. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. We're gonna take this venom from this toad that can kill us, and we're gonna aerosol it and inhale it directly into our lungs so we can get a vision. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, cool, let's do it. Sign me up. Let's get it on. And just I was kind of being funny, because the other crew, I could tell like they were a little apprehensive, and they said, "Well, who wants to go first?" And I was like, "Nah, I'll go. I don't care. Let's do this." And the other gentleman, the one SEAL that I told you was struggling a bit with some alcoholism and stuff like that, he was like, "Hey, do you mind if I go ahead and be first? Because if I don't go now, I may not." Absolutely, brother. Go. And man, it wasn't but a few minutes later, they asked us, "Hey, just hang out. This is individual, just don't come outside. Let the person do their thing, right? They don't talk to you, they don't do anything, they just sit there with you while you experience this thing." And it's not long. Most people is, 8 minutes, 12 minutes. Some people are 20, 30 minutes, and you have no concept of that, right? My total 5-MeO trip was probably 22 minutes, I think they said, and it felt like 30 seconds. Um, but yeah, so I hear him out there laughing, man, like just laughing, like hysterically, like a child giggling, and he's having a wonderful experience. He comes in, he walks through, he's going to take him to his bedroom. He walks through and he's just smiling, man, right? Like, the dude who went out there was still very confused, very depressed, or still just dealing with all of his issues, right?
Mhm.
But the dude who came in from 5-MeO was smiling like a child. I mean, he looked different. It was cool. It's real cool.
Wow.
And I'm like, all right, cool. And they're like, all right, who's next? And I'm like, all right, let's do this. So went out there and laid down, and Trevor explains it to me. He's like, hey, we're gonna hit, you're gonna warm this up. You start inhaling, try to take 30-second inhale, nice and slow. He's like, and then I want you to pull your mask down and lean back on the pillows, start counting backwards from 10. He's like, if you haven't experienced anything by 1, you didn't get any medicine, we'll start over. He's like, you'll know it. Okay, cool. So I take my deep breath and all that stuff. I put my mask on. I wasn't even leaning back, and everything just turned this brilliant, crazy silver. Even though I had my mask on, I could still see Trevor. I could still see my feet, my legs. Dude, I could see the serrations on every blade of grass at my
Whoa.
feet. I mean, it was just crazy how awesome my vision became, right? Even though I'm not seeing anything with my eyes, truly a vision.
Yeah.
And as I lay back, I feel like like I said, it's this silver, but I can't even explain it. It's like it's not really silver, right? It's like just this brilliant light. And I felt like it was pushing on me. And then all of a sudden, it pushed itself away from me. It like the silverness shattered like broken glass, kind of like a kaleidoscope. Some people say that's you're actually witnessing in your vision the medicine crossing the blood-brain barrier, because a lot of people report that kaleidoscope
Mhm.
looking thing. And they say, I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what somebody told me. Um, that is the medicine passing through your blood-brain barrier, whatever. Well,
Okay.
anyway, it shatters or cracks or turns into that kaleidoscope, and then it's like it pushed itself off me. I didn't feel like it was pressure, like pushing me into the ground or anything. That was a weird sensation, like as if this silverness, this layer, pushed itself off me, and I felt heavy, but not like I couldn't move or anything like that. And it immediately turned into blackness, nothing. And I could hear the wind, and I could still, at least I kind of think I could still feel the mist on my skin. And just this crazy peace, indescribable, indescribable. I still, a year and a month later, I have no words to describe. But it's apparently some people will hold their breath and even skip some heartbeats. They call it having a breakthrough on 5-MeO. So I went to that place, and I heard Trevor say, "Breathe, bro. Just breathe." Apparently, I was holding my breath and or not breathing, either one, right? And the medicine says, and people will say the medicine. I got to be frank, man. I can't guarantee you it was the voice of God Himself, but I don't know how more authoritative the voice of God could be. But the voice said, "Just die." In the context of don't listen to him, right? That voice was overriding, stepping on Trevor. Like, nope, he's not in control here. He's the facilitator. I'm in control here. That's what the voice said to me. So I let go. I just let go. So when I came to, I sit up, and they're all just looking at me, kind of surprised or whatever. Apparently, maybe I'd held my breath a little longer than they really wanted me to. And I looked at Trevor, and like we were just this eye contact, man. He's sitting right next to me, like on his knees, and I'm sitting up and I'm just looking at him, and I go, "I just died." And he went, "Yeah, yeah, you did." And dude, I immediately like just melted, tears, right? Like purging of tears. Um, the best cry I've ever had in my life. Trevor grabs a hold of me. Freaking Ruby, uh, Salome, all of them that were there, they just piled on top of me, dude. Like like as if they were just pushing love into me, right? I
Wow.
never felt anything more amazing. Like I said, I don't know that I've ever felt any more love than, the last time I saw my mom, you know?
Wow.
And it was just amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
So long story short, man, freaking, and then I hate it. It is a long story. So for the viewers out there, hopefully, it was something worth listening to. But there's no way to describe it shortly, right? And
Mhm.
that's the short version.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
there's just no way to tell the story in a brief.
Yeah,
I
man.
guess it could be like, Ibogaine's great, right? But that's not doing it justice. Ibogaine and 5-MeO, that protocol, and a
Thank you for
testament.
sharing your story, man. That is absolutely amazing.
And I'll tell you, bro. I was no, I have no problems telling it. Uh, bef- Before us doing this podcast, I had not talked about it publicly, and I went on with Sean Ryan. And that morning at breakfast, I was like, man, I don't know. I'm conflicted. I don't know if I should talk about it or not, because I still am affiliated with some government service, and I was worried that the powers that be, powers over me, would not like it,
Mhm.
and I might not get work, or I might you know. And so when it came time to start chatting, with Sean, I went, you know what, fuck it. If me talking about this helps one person, well, you know what? That's just a sacrifice that I'm willing to take. If
Amazing.
some narrow-minded, short-sighted person in a in charge of me in any way, shape, or form thinks that this somehow compromise my ability to do my job or anything like that, well, A, they're wrong and they're just being narrow-minded,
Yeah.
short-sighted.
Amazing.
The testimony of all the different dudes and guys from the special operations community that have done this, it's overwhelmingly positive. Um, they Stanford University did a study on Ibogaine and PTSD, and it is conclusive that it works. Right, like conclusive. Not you can't even argue it. So luckily, for the second year now, a lot of folks don't know this, the NDAA, right, the National Defense Authorization Act, right? It's actually one of the biggest scams pulled over the Americans' eyes each year on Capitol Hill. But it is the funding for the Department of Defense. Last summer, um, what's her name? Goofball New Yorker, the Democrat that was a bartender. What's her name?
Um, oh, is it
AOC. Yeah,
AOC?
AOC. AOC. I don't know why I can't remember her name. That makes me feel good. I know I'm getting out of politics when I can't remember that goofball's name. She um, submitted an amendment to the NDAA authorizing some like 60 million or something for research on psychedelics for veterans.
Oh, amazing.
Right?
Good for her.
Hate her, dislike her politics, whatever. She she stepped out there.
She's
And
onto something.
this is how awesome it was. Matt Gaetz, the exact opposite of AOC, right? Matt Gaetz is kind of like the leader of the more right wing.
Okay.
Um, he he teamed up with her and co-endorsed it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but of course it didn't get passed because
Ah,
buttholes like Greg Murphy, Dr. Greg Murphy, and his donors, Pfizer's and stuff like that, Big Pharma, they don't want anything to do with showing these plant-based medicines actually work. I don't know. You mean something from nature? You mean God who built this planet full of everything we need didn't also supply us with some medicine? It's not
yeah,
possible.
and I think because
Not possible.
I think there's a law that they cannot patent nature. Like their natural medicines can't be patented, so that's why they're trying to block that.
Exactly. Yep. So, um, luckily, since then, they've gotten Dan Crenshaw on board. So, like him or not, um, he is the biggest, newest like pusher of this psychedelics. Now, he is friends with, he's very close with like JT of Black Rifle Coffee, the Latrells, right? Like, not Marcus. Mojo is now a congressman, and Crenshaw helped get him there. These veterans that are up there, like I said, Dan's the most famous of them, are now pushing it. So there is another amendment to the NDAA that should, if they will pass it, fund this. Um, it's just testing. It's not making it legal, right? It's not like you're going to go to the VA and get your Ibogaine. you know, it's funding the research because right now the research is either being funded like the Stanford thing that was funded by supporters of this movement. Um, the government isn't funding this stuff, and it should
Mhm.
be, right? Like
Yeah,
the promise is there,
it
and
at
let's
least
face it,
it's a step
yeah,
in the right direction.
yeah. And I mean, we're seeing like across the board from ayahuasca to microdose of psilocybin. I mean, dudes are just getting crazy results from this stuff. And the let's talk the counter to it. The counter to it is, it's not like you have a deficiency of ibogaine, right? Well, no doubt, right? Well, you also don't have a deficiency of Wellbutrin, you know, and the difference between the ibogaines and these drugs. Well, once you start taking whatever SSRI, antidepressant, anti-anxiety medicines, well, man, you're on them forever.
Yeah.
That's not how it is with the right. The psychedelics, the plant-based medicines are resets. You
Yeah.
know, it's not something you're going to take for the rest of your life. It's actually something that's going to, at least potentially make you better.
It
Um,
sounds like one could be enough for a lot of people.
yeah. Like I said, for me, um, my headaches gone. I have not had a headache related to my TBI since.
Holy shit.
My taste and smell regressed a bit. They're not and it could just be a perspective thing. It's like I went from no taste and smell or everything tasted the same to all of a sudden be able to taste and smell again. So it could just be I got used to it,
Yeah.
but it feels like that waned just a little bit. It's not like it was what COVID did to it, but it's not as vibrant and as
I,
awesome as it was right after I
I want
began.
to reiterate to the audience though that you said you had just to recap for the audience, you got blown up while serving your country, which resulted in you having debilitating headaches to the point of nausea and actually not being able to be in light. You could light was painful for you and it would make you nauseous from having those headaches from being blown
Yeah,
up. And then now you don't have headaches at all from it.
gone. Zero headache, bro.
That's absolutely
And
incredible.
and I'll tell you, man, I mentioned earlier triathlons and endurance or ultra marathons. There's a saying in the endurance community, an ultra marathoning community, is that those runners are either running from something or after something, right? I have felt zero. Um, I'm not compelled to torture myself like that anymore. Um, Come to find out, and luckily Ibogaine showed me, I was coding quite a bit of survival skill. It allowed me, even though the practical mind, my practical, reasonable mind, right, through every AAR, every analysis placed on the mission, 2 different missions where guys who worked for me were killed. It was not my fault, right? Like when we got blown up, man, we just happened to stop in traffic next to a fucking bomb. My leadership did not do that. The traffic, the stoplight did, right? I couldn't have, I mean, it was chance, whatever you want to call it. We just happened to park in front of a bomb. It wasn't intended for us, but we ate it. Um, and like I said, 3 of my boys, my brothers, were killed that day. And on another operation, as a team leader, I had a dude get killed. And your boys are going to get killed in war, all right? We know that's going to happen, but it still doesn't make us impervious to, the impact or effects of that. So I had been toting that around, and I think I use the analogy that a lot of people do when it comes to compartmentalization inside our heads, right? Like we take the bad stuff, put it in a box, put it on a shelf, right? I think most people have heard some type of analogy similar to that, right? That was not true. What I was really doing is I had that a closet, right, that I would open, shove some shit in, and shut the door real fast, right, and leave. Right. That's how I was storing my mental baggage, my traumas, whatever, right? It was just a unorganized pile of shit in a room at the end of the hall, and way back at the back, my brain. It allowed me to open that door and throw all that shit away.
Wow.
Eject. Gone. I still miss my brothers. I still love those dudes. I honor them, love them, miss them. Um, but it allowed me to go to truly re- accept, I don't know what the right word is to realize, come to the conclusion that it truly was not my fault and I should let them go. Let them go.
That's
And
beautiful.
what really, I told you I would explain why that SEAL being there was important to me and why I being there was important to him. After we did 5-MeO and my having the breakthrough, mine was different than everybody else. Mine was the nothingness, you know, the other side, where they saw crazy cool hallucinations, visions. And so I didn't have that experience, different. After that, we're sitting around chatting. and that's Seal. And you know what? His name's Ben. Ben would be okay with me saying his name. Um, I explained what I saw on 5-MeO, and he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Do you think it showed you the other side so you can quit worrying about your brothers being there?" Bro. And I think you can tell, like, a little emotion there, right? It was overwhelming. That what he said put everything in perspective for me. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It was, like I said, eject button on that closet full of shit. Gone. And I, at that moment, was the first time I could ever describe to you that I felt happy in my life. Like I said, little emotion come out with that, right?
Wow.
Happy, happy. And it hasn't stopped since. I'm a year and a month later, and I'm happy. I know what's important and I know what's not important. And even better, I can stop myself from chasing the unimportant, you know? Um,
That's amazing, man.
so for
Thank you so
him,
much.
yeah, man, no, folks need to know this shit, you know? And I think it's, I don't buy into the bro vet. I'm not a victim, man. I volunteered for every mission I ever went on, right? I don't buy into the government fucked me, right? I mean, warriors have been being abused since the beginning of time by rich people, right? You can wallow in that bullshit all you want. No, dude, I volunteered, right? It's on me. I knew what I was getting into, all right? So I have to accept that, right? So for some of these bro vets that are whining and crying about, being abused by a government that doesn't care about them. Hey, man, you knew that shit when you signed up. All right, so accept that. Is it screwed up? Yes, it's screwed up. Is it going to change? No. Right? Our so-called representatives don't care about us that much, right? Well, they're not actually going to take care of and fix the VA, and right, we have to take it upon ourselves. Um, and but if some young trooper out there watches this and they see me drop a tear because I am well beyond that tough guy part of my life. You know what I mean? Um, and here's the thing, right? This is important, I think, for those guys to know that the emotion that pushed these tears out of me right then is happiness, right? Those are happy tears. They're not sadness. I'm not sad in any way, shape, or form anymore, bro. Um, Guys need to know that. That's what that medicine did for me. Before the medicine, if you'd asked me how I was doing, I would use a word like content. I'm good. I'm content. Everything's good. Now I'll describe myself as happy, and it's
Amazing.
cool. I'm a better person now. Um, I relate to others better. I am far more loving, caring, uh, compassionate. I have more empathy. My relationship with Melissa, that was already strong, um, is indestructible now. It Another argument from against plant medicine is um, more religious. I have heard guys say that, and people say that it's the devil. It's the devil. It's the devil fooling you. Dude, I've been there, and what I saw and heard was not the devil, because I feel like I've heard him speak to me before, and it wasn't the same. Right? Nothing about my Ibogaine trip has steered me towards evil or bad. It pushed me closer to God. Um, I've always believed, right? I was raised in the Methodist church. My mom wanted me to go to church, so my dad made me go to church. I've never questioned my faith. I read the Bible through and to one side to the other before I was 12 years old. Um, and then I read it again in my late 20s, and I'm now reading it for the third time. It's interesting though. This time I'm not reading it cover to cover. I'm reading it randomly. Right? Like, no shit, sitting here. In the mornings, I just do this. I open it and I start reading. Right.
And then
So
I guess
that's
that's
how
the message that would be meant for you for that day.
I look at it. I'll just let, you know, whatever. This is what I'm reading today. And it's cool, right? Like it is cool because whatever you do read that morning does become part of your day. Um, but for me, there was no evil about this trip. It's not anybody who says that they think it's the devil and it's you know I forget the whole argument that all you need is Jesus and this and that. And I don't think that's a wrong argument, but for me, what Ibogaine and 5-MeO did was break down barriers that I either had or had placed myself, keeping me from taking that next step and really creating a relationship with God.
Wow.
So, yeah, for me, man, Ibogaine, 5-MeO, freaking, I don't want to say it saved my life because I wasn't in any, I was definitely not in any risk of suicide. I've never contemplated suicide. I'm not a depressed person or something like that. But what it truly did for me, man, was I mean, it made me closer to God, and maybe that's why I'm happy now.
Beautiful.
Right? That's pretty solid. But either way, it pushed me, opened up, broke down barriers, so I could take that next step and get closer to God. In that process, it's Melissa started reading the Bible again too. She was also raised in a Methodist church in rural North Carolina. We didn't know each other. It's kind of funny. Me and Melissa actually grew up only about an hour from each other. Um, but it's funny. If she had met me in high school, she would have never hung out with me. She was like straight A student. Melissa has never done any drugs. Right? She don't smoke weed. She didn't. She's only probably been alcohol intoxicated a handful of times in her life. She didn't drink till she was like in dental school and stuff. So she was turbo nerd, right? And I was the bad kid. So if we had to cross paths before when we did, we would not have meshed. you know,
Amazing.
um,
Amazing.
yeah, I would have not met her standards. uh, so in this whole thing, man, she and I have become closer. Yeah, yeah, man, just amazing shit. You
That's
know,
beautiful, man. I love that story, man. Thank you so much for
oh,
sharing that with me and with whoever listens to this,
yeah.
man. That is just absolutely
And,
incredible.
and for some tough guy out there that's worried that Tony's not a tough guy anymore, and that could happen to them. Me talking about being happy and me talking about other stuff, it also provided me a clarity. Right when I said I know what's important and what's not important, it provided me a clarity. So it's weird to say, but I am now as capable, if not more capable, of being and doing soldier type stuff, right, than I've ever been. There's no cloudiness in here, right? There's no brain fog. There's no question about right or wrong anymore. Um, Nothing, right? It's just clarity. So I'm still, well, I might talk to you about love, happiness, and God. I am still a very capable, um, both physically, mentally, whatever, of being a special operations type dude. Whether you want to call it what it is, I'm still very capable of the violence required of that.
Yeah, you do.
Only,
You do train people to shoot guns, right? That's what you do.
right. We are training to kill people, right? Like when we train, what are we in the military? What are we training? We're training to kill people. I am as same level, if not better, because of that clarity.
I think it's more
Um,
badass, man. I think
it's
it's you're the badass you've always been. Plus, you can say I'm
yeah,
closer to God and I'm happy
yeah,
and I love my
right.
partner.
I don't want to be violent, right? I would like to never ever do war stuff again, right? If I could, zebras and its stripes, right? Like if I could change and become like a painter and enjoy that, then I would, right? I mean, but I am what I am, and I don't want to be mean to other people, but I'll be mean to other people that deserve it, right?
And I
That's
think for anyone
that's
listening,
hard.
for anyone listening, just like knowing that, just imagine that there's hope out there and you could be saying that too. To just try that on for size. How's that feel to say you're happy? It's got to feel pretty fucking good.
Dude. And I wish that for every single person on this planet, right? Like there are people out there who don't like me, who are, whatever, right? We all have people that don't like us. And I always tell people, like, I can simultaneously pray for a mofo while also, if I meet him, punch him in the face. Right? Those two very different things. Uh, you know, I mean, but like the Bible and Jesus never taught us to be completely forgiving, right? If someone screws up and they make amends, ask for forgiveness, and change their behavior, we welcome them, right? It's not a free for all where you can do whatever you want and God still forgives you, right? It is not our job as Christians to be all forgiving and all understanding and all accepting, right? No, we're not supposed to forgive horrible bad behaviors, right? Like I'm not forgiving to pedophiles,
Right.
right? I'm not forgiving to rapists, right?
Yeah.
God can and Jesus can forgive those folks. It is our duty, our responsibility to protect each other, right, from
Yeah.
those type of people.
You
So
you
yeah,
can
no,
be a
I'm
loving person and still not take any shit off people.
absolutely, and that's our job as protectors. You know, that's what the protective type person, the protective man, is supposed to do for his family and community. Um, but yeah, to guys who are struggling, man, there are a couple of new organizations that are standing up out there. Like I said, Vets is at least my last check. They only send special operations guys, but there are other organizations out there that will cover the costs for you to do these retreats. They're out there. You just have to look for them. But yeah, I also discovered this. I did not know this because at no point from the time I talked to Johnny to the time I showed up and Trevor handed me my first dose was I apprehensive. I was not afraid to do it. I had no reservations. All I knew was my headaches could go away. Like I was convinced, screw it.
That's amazing,
Um,
man. I'm so happy that it worked too, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, so come to find out, man, a lot of guys are scared of this shit.
Uh-huh.
They're afraid of it. I didn't know that. Biggest, toughest dudes on the planet, they're like, "Eh." And I think maybe it's a control issue, right? Like really surrendering to something like that is definitely going to mess with someone that has a little bit of control issue.
You kind
And
of have to let go.
exactly surrender, right? Let go. So to that guy, don't be afraid, man. Don't be afraid. I have yet to talk to someone who even they didn't have a great journey on the medicine, but they didn't still get huge health benefits, mental health benefits from doing it. Right. So both of those two dudes I told you I was there with, who did not have awesome Ibogaine trips, one of them has already gone back and the other one intends to go back and they're both doing great. The one
I
guy
love it.
hasn't touched alcohol since, freaking is off his oxy. Yeah, man, doing great.
Wow. So
Uh,
we've got healed addiction, healed physical trauma, healed mental health, PTSD. There was a trauma survivor, all healed. And by the way, call me crazy, but we were talking a little bit on the spiritual side. And I feel like the two people that were really involved with you, the one is the guy that you mentioned who sent you there. I think you said his name was Johnny.
Johnny,
And then also the guy who was with you in your bunk, the Navy SEAL from your gym. I feel
hmm
like they were really there like for a reason.
for
Like
sure.
like with Johnny who sent you there talking about his own mom, and then that kind of like prompted you to ask your questions to the medicine and really interact with
Yeah,
the medicine, which then kind of made it give you what you got and what you needed. And then yeah, call me a crazy spiritual guy, but I feel like your friend Ben, like the angels were really speaking through him
for sure.
when you
For sure.
guys were talking about your experience
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. And I promise you, man, like I'm not on board the liberal crazy experiment of we all need to the talking through our feelings with the therapist thing, right? I think we're finally coming to the conclusion that that is not helpful for the military PTSD type guys.
Yep.
It's purpose. Having a Marine who was in Fallujah and lost 5 of his buddies right in front of him. He probably, I mean, there were dudes like people don't understand, man. When you're in combat, like in like sustained combat, like in Fallujah, your buddies get killed. You put them in body bags and they stay with you until they can be evac. So you had young Marines sleeping, if they could get some sleep, next to their dead buddies. Stuff like that. A lot of Americans don't realize that ugliness of it, right?
Yeah.
Like in America, if your grandmother dies, they take her to the or not cemetery initially, hopefully, right? But to the to the funeral home, and you don't see all the ugliness, right? The next time you see her might be in the casket at the funeral, at the wake, or whatever. But man, in combat, when your buddy dies, right, you're there with him, his dead, mangled body, or whatever freaking until he can be evacuated, you
Uh,
know? So you got young 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds experiencing this stuff. And then coming home to a place where no one gives a shit. I mean, let's face it, right? Like we all have our own business going on. And after 20 some years of war, man, it just kind of got, support the troops kind of got old for the average American.
mm.
So these young guys, man, man, I'm talking to them, these young guys and gals who experienced shitty things, and maybe they really weren't prepared for it for whatever reason. Um,
And now you have your
Man,
own
there's ways of
non-for-profit as well, right?
yeah. So, you know, I I feel like we're obligated, right? Like we should feel some sort of sense of giving back. So my favorite pastime is hunting. I grew up redneck kid, used to, we shot deer for food. They said we didn't have a lot of money when I was a little kid, so we would add to that, the meat freezer through white-tailed deer. And so my dad was a little more into like duck hunting, dove hunting, quail hunting, bird hunting type stuff. So we did all of that growing up and everything. Um, 6, 7 years ago, I went through a lull where I wasn't hunting because I was overseas all the time. And as that kind of tapered off a little bit, started making it a priority to start hunting out west again for elk, mule deer, big game stuff. And I like hunting out west because you're in the mountains. It's backpacking. It's a lot like sniper recce type stuff, you know. Um, but you're outside. You're looking for healthy food, right? So there's a lot of purpose when it comes to hunting for me. So my one of my closest hunting buddies is a former force reconnaissance fella. He's also been and done the Ibogaine trip. He was another one of those people that, as soon as he saw me when I got home, he had one question: "How do I go?" Um, and that was kind of cool because he was the first force Marine to go through vets. Because technically speaking, force reconnaissance and reconnaissance community in the Marine Corps doesn't fall under SOCOM, so they're not special operations. But vets decided in his case that what, they're big enough and can support it. Recons Marines are now soft under their umbrella. So he was the first guy that went. He came back, very similar type of thing. But yeah, so he and I 6, 7 years ago talked about starting the Reason Outdoors, and it was going to be a nonprofit, 501c3, to take veterans, first responders, and their children on hunting and fishing trips and other outdoor adventures. And he and I were both busy. It didn't happen. We started it. We sat down with a tax attorney. It just didn't happen. Well, anyway, last year, he and I were like, "Hey, we're going hunting in Idaho. Why don't we see if we can't find a couple of veterans to take? They'll pay for themselves or whatever, but we'll be the quote unquote guides. We'll take them elk hunting, show them the ropes, show them why hunting's important to us." And so I literally just put it out there on social media, on Instagram. "Hey guys, me and my buddies are going to Idaho elk hunting in October, November of next year. If you would like to go, and we are willing to take up to 5, right?" That's an endeavor, man. It's logistical feat what we did pull off. Um, So we had 5 guys. It turned into 3, 2 vets and 1 active duty guy. And so yeah, we took them out there to Idaho uh, just last month. Had an amazing hunt. Well, because we had this ramping up and coming in August, my partner, his name's Ryan, and I said, "Hey, Ryan, man, you know what? Maybe we should pull the trigger on this on the reason, man. Let's see about it. Let's look back into it." Well, in the time frame from 6 years ago to now, the IRS changed the application for nonprofit. It went from like the application was a stack of paperwork this long to just a questionnaire, very quick.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, they streamlined it. Crazy. The government streamlined something.
who'd have thought?
Uh, well, let's face it. Why would they do that? Well, because just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean the government doesn't still get taxes off of it. Um, so I'm not surprised. The only time the government makes things easier is when they profit from it. But anyway, so yeah, we went and applied. I used one of like the online legal systems or whatever. Streamlined, fast. They gave us our 501c3 in 6 weeks. Uh, and before this new process, apparently it could take 6 months, 2 years. So we had our approval for 501c3 within 6 weeks. Did a raffle, freaking raised enough money to pay for the rental vehicles, right? Like we had 8 total out on that hunt. So 2 4x4 pickup trucks for almost 3 weeks. You're talking $5,000 in rental vehicles, right? It's not cheap. Hunting's not cheap, especially backcountry hunting, right? So yeah, man, it all just kind of started falling into place. And he and I both are the type of people that, he's like a dog on a bone, right? Freaking once we start something, we ain't stopping. So we got it stood up, we got the website, we got everything done so fast, and all right before we were able to go on the hunt. We raised a little bit of money to cover quite a bit. We were able to cover a photographer, former Ranger Regiment guy, awesome photographer to document it. So we paid for his plane ticket and food and all that kind of stuff. So we were able to cover a good chunk of this hunt, even though the Reason Outdoors had only been stood up for a few weeks
Wow.
prior to us going on this hunt.
Mhm.
So yeah, man. Again, the reason, right? Is we want to share with guys the reason we hunt. And it's not just about, hey man, come on, hang with us. We're gonna go shoot an animal. No, it's hunter education. I told those guys, I was like, you guys are going on one of the most difficult hunting trips in North America. Backpack, backcountry, do it yourself, no guide, um, public land elk hunt in Idaho. We're going to be at 6 to 10,000 feet of elevation. We're going to be in the snow. It's going to be really cold. You guys are going on one hell of a tough hunt. So get ready. You got to be physically fit, all that kind of stuff, right? I told them, I was like, my goal for this hunt is next year you can go by yourself and take someone else.
Amazing. I
Right. So
love
it's a
that. I
force
love that.
multiplier thing, right? It's not just show up, we take you out, we dial the elevation on your scope and you shoot and you hit an animal and then we clean it for you. No, 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 no. Oh, no, no. You're going to be part of every single step of the way. Um, we had them buy their own tags and licenses so they would know the process. We had a gear list. We had phone conversation, Zoom conversation once a month leading up to it. We got these guys ready. And so it was kind of cool. One of the guys, a Marine, and not an infantry Marine, right? He was a logistics guy. And so no field experience. So we exposed him all of this stuff. He goes on this hunt. Um, and he's a mess, right? Dude's awesome, right? He's from Long Island, so he's a bit of a city boy, right? Not country rednecks like myself and Ryan. Um, we go on this hunt. He was not one of the guys that got something, but he had also drawn a cow tag, a elk female. For folks that don't know, we call female elk cows. Uh, he drew a tag in Montana, and I have a friend. He's become friends with this ranch owner out there. So anyway, he goes hunting with us in Idaho. 2 weeks later, turns around and goes by himself to Montana and kills a big whitetail and a big elk on his own.
Wow.
Success,
Yeah,
right?
I love
Mission,
it.
mission success. Uh,
I think,
you
I just want
know,
to say that I really think that thank you for sharing that. I think that the best leaders and the best mentors sometimes forget that to in my opinion, the best leaders and best mentors leave their students so that they don't need that leader anymore and they can go do it on their own.
no dependency, no dependency,
Exactly.
right? It's funny in MARSOC, Marine Special Operations, they call their support guys enablers. I told my guys, I was like, no, 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 it's backwards this time. We, the subject matter experts, are the enabler. We are enabling these guys who know less about hunting than we do to become hunters
Yeah.
and to go teach others how to become hunters. Uh, how to sleep in the woods at night. And I don't mean a nice summertime, you know, sleep in the back of your truck camp. It was 4 degrees on top of that
Whoa.
mountain a couple of nights, right? Teens in the as the highs. Yeah, man. And you're
Yeah,
out
man.
there for days at a
I
time.
I think I
Yeah,
really believe that the best teachers leave their students with the tools so that they don't need their teacher anymore.
absolutely. Absolutely, right? I wanted those dudes to leave out of there and just be able to go. Well, luckily, we got to see that in his case, he went to Montana and did it. Um, so I long range shooting is kind of like my passion. Yeah, I teach pistol and carbine, but long range is my passion. It supports my hunting habit. Um, so that those young men in preparation, we gave them free access to every one of my long range classes over the year. And so that guy who went to Montana, he took a class from me last February here in Carolina, and then a class that I put on in Montana in May, and then another one in August. So he went to three long range classes, and then was out there. So it kind of sucked, man. Last day, last light. The other co-founder of the Reason, Drew. So we got myself, Ryan, and Drew. So Drew, he's elk hunting with 3 or 4 years now, and he hasn't gotten one. Right.
Oh,
So even though he's one of the Reasons, main guys, he's hunting too. Like we all were. It's a group hunt, but the guys who are accompanying us had priority. So it's last day, man, last light. Some of the guys have already gotten their animals and gone home. So it's the three of us are left, and we're kind of spread out along this ridge. And luckily, on this ridge, we're actually close enough to Idaho City that we had cell service. And the weather had gotten bad up north, so all the animals had moved south. So did we. So we were a little closer to a little town called Idaho City. Anyway, um, sure enough, man, I got moved out to this little finger. It was kind of chilly out. Sun's starting to get behind the mountain, so I'm putting my jacket and stuff on. Dude, I pulled my binos out and scanned about that much. Boom, there's an elk. He's a spike, so not big antlers or anything like that, but he's legal and therefore delicious. I don't hunt for trophies, man. I hunt to make sure I got meat in the freezer. I don't eat processed meat. I don't eat commercial meat.
fuck
Um,
yeah, man.
you know, uh, yeah, I got 4 freezers full of turkey, boar, elk, deer, if you're in the neighborhood, swing by. I give it to people all the time. Like, please go eat this.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
And that's the
So
good stuff. There's no like hormones or anything in that. That's nature.
truly, yeah, truly
That's
grass fed, grass finished. Like I know how that animal lived. I know how that animal died. I know how that animal was processed, and I know exactly what it is in my freezer.
that's real
Um,
food.
yeah, man. Well, it sucked for those guys, man. We were running out of daylight, and we walked down this finger. He's on this like there's a ridge here and a ridge here, and he's over on this ridge. And we go down this finger, closest we can get to him, 709 meters. So you're talking 780 yards ish. And
Wow.
we all have the long range capability and training and all that kind of stuff. And I said, okay, you know what? All three of us are going to shoot at this animal, right? Uh, on the one of one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everybody shoot. Sure enough, man, this elk's over there just minding his own business, eating. having a wonderful evening. And on the one of one, we sent it. That elk didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't nothing. He's still just eating. Like nothing has happened. Now we're all shooting suppressed rifles, so not a loud report. But when those bullets all impacted right around him, dude, he didn't pay it any mind. It was like, what? He's just a juvenile elk, man. Just, you know, anyway. And I mean, he doesn't even look around. Well, the one fella, he had too much magnification on his scope. So when he shot and recovered, he couldn't find the elk again. So he's looking, looking, looking. He just, when you crank up the scope on your rifle, the field of view gets smaller, right? So he couldn't find the animal again. Well, my other buddy, his magazine catch on his rifle malfunctioned. So when the recoil of his gun went off, his magazine fell out. So when he racked around and put another one in there, he's got no bullets. Well, now he's looking for his mag that's on the ground. I knew I called my shot. I knew exactly where my shot went. I knew I was just in front of him just a little bit. So I corrected and I'm like, guys, anybody gonna shoot? And I like kind of look out of the corner of my eye. I'm still on glass, I didn't want to lose the animal or whatever. And I'm looking and they're doing whatever they're doing. I'm like, all right, I'm shooting. And dumped him right there. We call it DRT, dead right there. And that's what you want, right? You don't want an animal to suffer, right?
Yeah.
Ethical hunting is a big deal with me, right? Like you go to one of my hunter long range classes, we don't talk about shooting animals at 1,000 meters. We talk about determining exactly where each shooter should engage and no further based off of their training and their performance in that class. Right? So if a dude just can't shoot that well, hey man, maybe it's 300 meters for you. And then other guys, maybe their ethical shooting distance is 600 meters. I don't know. We determine that based off of vital zones, right? Like an elk, man. I mean, their heart, they're this big. Their lungs are huge. So the vital zone on the elk is a huge target.
Mhm.
Um,
And you shot
so
it you
anyway,
shot this elk from, like, 7 football fields away.
right. Yeah. And honestly,
Damn.
that's, the long range community will tell you, that's not a horrible shot. I mean, that's not a horribly difficult shot.
Okay.
700 meters. I'm shooting a Magnum rifle, a high performance, 7 millimeter PRC cartridge, right? Like that's not a horribly difficult shot.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
it's pretty easy to miss it too. You know what I mean? A little bit of wind that you didn't read correctly or something like that. Easy miss. And that's what I did. I had a bad wind call on my first shot. And luckily didn't wound the animal. Right.
Yeah.
So wind was blowing left to right. He was facing left to right. So that round went right in front of him. Had it been the other way around with that wind, I would have had more lead off of him to make sure I didn't hit him in the back end and the guts and stuff like that. So there's things you have to do to make sure you don't wound these animals, man. I mean, elk are resilient, tough creatures. I mean, I have seen them suck up 3 and 4 Magnum rounds before and stand there. They're big, tough animals. There's videos out on the internet of them getting hit by cars, knocked down the street, and they get up. you know,
Wow.
yeah, they're big, big, tough, wild animals.
I
And
think,
but
I heard, through a source that, I don't know if I'm supposed to know this or if I'm gonna get this wrong, but I heard through a source that the original sort of code word for hunting bin Laden was elk hunt.
yeah, yeah, I was talking about that over on Sean's thing, right? So the task force that was Special Forces Fifth Group and all that, they code named the initial push in the Afghanistan elk hunt. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kinda cool little synchronicity that
Yeah,
you guys are now taking people on elk hunts.
yeah,
Do you
yeah,
do
kind of
you
cool.
know, when is the reason outdoors? Do you know when your next hunt is yet? Or
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. My partner Ryan is a hunting guide. So he has boar, deer, turkey, and bear hunting properties all over eastern North Carolina and South Carolina. So we're really lucky there that we can facilitate these hunts anytime, smaller scale hunts, right? We are going to do one of those big hunts, like the Idaho hunt, each fall. Next year, we're going to do it in Colorado. Um, instead of Idaho, just to mix it up a little bit. My two buds haven't hunted there, so we're gonna hunt Colorado. That's our next big one. In the spring, I'm trying to set up a hunt right now in New Mexico for Aldad, which is Aldad is a Barbary. It's called the Barbary sheep. Um, Big brown, actually. That guy right there, that's a
Okay.
Barbary sheep. Yep. So we're going to try and take a couple of guys there. Um, Hopefully he won't see this, but that's probably going to be a trip we're going to take Tyler Vargas on. Um, Tyler was the Marine that got all screwed up in the blast in Afghanistan during the withdrawal.
Gotcha.
He testified at Congress, all that. If you don't follow um, Tyler, he's an amazing dude. I mean, a dude got all blown up, lost leg, lost arm. Hell, last week he got in a bad car accident, totally, completely totaled out a full size pickup. He was stopped in traffic, and this lady never even hit the brakes. Hit him at
Damn.
like 70 mile an hour on an interstate.
Holy
Out
shit.
like rolling bald. Yeah, she was either intoxicated and definitely not paying attention to the road, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, obviously God loves you, bro. You know, like you keep surviving shit that you shouldn't have survived. But anyway, yeah, I'm trying to set that up so we can take him and a couple other guys down to New Mexico. The Barbary sheep hunt is a cool hunt. It's just a cool hunt, man. It's desert hunting. So anyway, we got to figure out, you know, guys like him, they're going to need a little bit of help in the field. That dude's hitting a weight pile and hitting the gym like a maniac these days, even though he's missing some pieces.
Wow.
Um, but so yeah, we got to try and facilitate. I'm talking with a rancher down there that I think is going to give us a hunt. But
Amazing.
yeah, you know, it is, man. And if folks want to check it out, man, it's called thereasonoutdoors.org. On Instagram, it's the underscore reason underscore outdoors underscore, I think, on Insta. We got a bunch of pictures and all that stuff up there. You know, we're not a something for nothing type of organization. We've teamed up with a bunch of cool companies, you know, who are supporting us. But like raffles, we're gonna be doing raffles. So like, good friend of mine who owns an archery store donated a top of the line badass Hoyt bow
Oh,
with
sick.
all the coolest attachments from Leadline. It's like $2,200 bow. And
Nice.
he donated it to us to raffle off. So that raffle's going on. We're gonna have a Type A AR rifle coming up for raffle, and that's like a high end badass AR rifle. So
Sick.
you know, we're just getting started, man. Um, there are plenty of other organizations out there that do what we do. What we're trying to do to be slightly different is the educational piece,
Yeah.
right? When we take guys on the hunt, it's not just us showing them the animal, they shoot it, they're done, right? It's no, hey man, you're going to hang out with us. We're going to show you, like in North Carolina, you know, how are we, you know, feeding these animals? Like North Carolina, you know, it's legal to bait bear and deer, and of course boars. So like my partner Ryan, he'll take them out, show them exactly how the process works. He explains um, like how to determine how the animals move around a property, low lying ground. All I mean, it's an education, man. So that's our goal is to not just put a dude in a tree stand, he shoots a deer, and he's done. You know, we want to do way more than that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Really empowering the guys to be able to do
yeah,
this thing on their own.
exactly.
We're running really long. I want to see. I don't want you to be like in trouble with Melissa. I know you said
No,
you're super
not at all.
strong.
Not at all, man. No, it's a good talk. I didn't anticipate us talking this long, but same like with Sean, man. You know, when it flows, let's let it flow. You know, um,
Amazing.
yeah, no, man, it's good stuff.
Well,
You know, the
with your stories, I mean, I do have a hypothetical survival scenario if you want to play this game.
all
I
right.
mean, with your stories, I'm like, I don't know how entertaining this is going to be for you, but if you want to give it a shot, we can.
Yeah, man, it's your thing that sets your cast out different than others, man. Hell yeah, freaking let's do it. see if I can survive the Navy SEAL test.